You're watching ChillyBoy Productions. I'm Larry ChillyBoy Chilson, and this is my review for Dune Part 2. Now, before we get into this review, make sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button down below so that you can chill with me on each and every one of my latest videos. Dune Part 2 is a 2024 science fiction adventure film, and of course, a follow-up to the 2021 film Dune, both of which are an adaptation from the novel Dune. In Dune Part 2, Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Freemen, seeking revenge against the conspirators who annihilated his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe, Paul must prevent a terrible future that only he can see. Dune Part 2 is once again directed by Denis Villeneuve and stars Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Christopher Walken, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, Léa Seydoux, Charlotte Rampling, and Stellan Skarsgård. So I absolutely adored Dune Part 1 that came out in 2021. It was one of my top 5 favorite films of 2021. You actually can watch my very first reaction watching the movie here on the channel, as well as my reaction to that 1980s film as well. But I loved it. I loved everything about it. So, of course, my hopes, my expectation, and my anticipation were sky high for Dune Part 2. Then those trailers came out. They looked absolutely amazing. And I could not wait for this night to get here. And thus, I am so happy to report that I absolutely loved Dune Part 2. It possibly even exceeded my very high expectations heading in. It's a nearly perfect science fiction film, and it is a perfect sequel to the first one. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. Well, where do you even begin when discussing the positives in a film like Dune Part 2? Because it does pretty much everything extremely well. So I guess you start with the top and Denis Villeneuve, who once again knocks it out of the park. His direction in this film is absolutely fantastic, from the action set pieces to the smaller moments, the more sci-fi elements, the more fantastical decisions. Everything about his direction here is pitch perfect. The pacing, all of it works so well, and it comes down to Denis Villeneuve's direction. He guided this ship to become an instant sci-fi classic. Of course, we have to talk about Greg Fraser because the cinematography in this film is absolutely stunning. The first film was already breathtaking, and this one dials it up to the next level. The scope, the scale of everything here is absolutely magnificent. The way that Fraser plays with color is gorgeous and really innovative and unique. There's this particular sequence that plays with a black and white aesthetic moving in and out of the color of the world with the Harkonnens. That's amazing. Some of the most innovative uses of black and white I've ever seen. Hans Zimmer returns with another out of this world score. Of course, he takes the elements that were there in his first score, the themes and cues, implements all of them beautifully into this score, and then gives us new themes and builds upon them, gives us new sounds that we have never heard before. The score is amazing. The set design is stunning. The costumes, once again, are absolutely breathtaking. The makeup work is fantastic, honestly, on another level, even from the first film. And I have to give a special highlight to the action set pieces. The entire third act of this film is probably just the straight up best action I've seen on a big budget blockbuster like this in ages. A film that's not necessarily an action film. We hit the ground running in that third act and literally never let up with some of the most amazing action I've seen with this grand scale mixed with these one shots. All of the hand-to-hand combat is shot so beautifully to contrast with the big war epic feel of some of these other action set pieces. The entire third act is literally jaw to the floor material. Another sequence that had my mouth just wide open was Paul Atreides and his first ride. That's all I'm going to say there. I think they've used it for some of the promotional material. Don't watch it. Wait to experience it on the big screen because it is one of the most amazing sequences I've ever seen. It blew my mind. And then we get to the actors who all also deliver. They are fantastic in this film. Timothée Chalamet kills it as Paul Atreides. If you had any doubt about him in that first film, I know some people were like, ew, he's not an action hero, blah, blah, blah. Throw that out the window. He killed it here with the action, with the drama. He is Paul Atreides, and I thought he was so good. Zendaya really gets to shine in this film, and in many ways, delivers my favorite performance of the entire movie. I thought she was amazing here. Just her face acting was stellar. Javier Bardem is fantastic. Josh Brolin kills it. Christopher Walken makes use of really limited screen time. Stellan Skarsgård, once again, is just this intimidating mass of a man. Rebecca Ferguson really gets to delve into some more interesting aspects to her character this time around and gets to give us feelings that we haven't really seen from her in many other films. And I absolutely loved it. I thought she was amazing. And then, of course, I have to talk about him. Austin Butler, who honestly, the character is a scene stealer just in his own right, but Austin just dials it up, comes in and steals almost every single scene he's in. He's fantastic, a complete departure from anything I've ever seen from him. He's intimidating. He brings just enough chaos without going over the top and sending us back to David Lynch days. This is not Sting's fade, okay? This is an equally unhinged, but so much more intimidating version. The script is also a beautiful adaptation of the source material. Honestly, it's just amazing. It is a literal technical achievement across the board. And then you add on the more human elements to it, the allegories that are present here, the really deep messages that are brought to the forefront, and you have this really inspirational yet conflicting storyline across the board, something that makes you feel you're invested in these characters. Oh, it's so good. So then, what aspects does Dune 2 miss on? Well, there's not much, honestly, and these are very much nitpicks. But I do think the first act of this film drags just a tad. There are moments where I felt the runtime just a little bit. And I think it has to do with the training and kind of getting back to the bigger aspects. As we just live with Paul Atreides as he's with the Fremen, it's all necessary. It all needs to happen. But it feels very much like the middle of the story arc itself because we have to kind of level him up and get him to where he needs to be. But once we start getting the Harkonnen back into the story, then everything really just flies from there. I also think there are some aspects that are difficult to translate from a book like this. And honestly, it's more critiques of the book than it is the movie itself, specifically stuff to do with a baby, a fetus. It's hard. It's hard to accomplish what needs to happen in this film without being a little bit odd, a little bit like, okay, this is weird, but sure. But again, the movie adapted it just about as perfectly as you can. So it all comes down to the source material having some things that you're like, okay. But honestly, I absolutely adored Dune Part 2. I cannot wait to see this again. I saw it in Dolby tonight. I need to see it in an IMAX immediately. I need to experience these fantastic sequences on the biggest screen in my entire state. As I said, it's a technical achievement across the board, but it's also so much more than that with really dense, rich material to pull from that had me thinking long after walking out of that movie theater, had me emotionally invested in what was happening in our characters and what happened with them, not just Paul, but across the board, really invested in all of the different subplots and just watching in complete awe. As I said, this is damn near perfect and serves as a literal perfect sequel to Dune. If you were disappointed that the first film left us on a cliffhanger, rush out to see Dune Part 2. I think you are going to eat this up, much like I did. This one's going to be hard to dethrone from my top spot this year, y'all. That's how good this is. So, that was my review for Dune Part 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so that you are always up to date on all of my latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Dune Part 2? Are you a fan of the book? And did you like the first movie? And really, did you like the David Lynch movie? Let me know all of your thoughts and comments either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.